Welcome back to Seize the Gap Fantasy Football. I'm Jamie G. Esquire, the fifth, mayor of the 19th hole, and I am back with the one and only Magnum to help you seize the gap and stop being so inefficient. On this episode, we're helping your fantasy football team seize the damn gap with our Week 5 waiver wire recommendations. Mills, I think we need to track down whoever said, gee, there really haven't been that many injuries so far this season because I'm pretty sure they jinxed us.
Yeah, and this is ultimately probably a full-on Alanis alert type of situation because isn't it ironic that injuries suck, but they also provide the best waiver wire opportunities. So we're gonna have to do with that what you will. I am an Eagles fan, but my condolences out to Malik Nabers, all of everyone who owned him and everybody except the Giants team because they get no quarter, but everyone else, I feel bad for y'all, and we feel good that you're checking out this episode of Season F Fantasy Football. Thank you for doing so. You can find our content wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Find us on social media at Seize the Gap FF and on the web at seizethegapff.com. Very simple, very easy to remember, just like the flaps, FLAPS. Follow, like, and please subscribe if you had fun. Please hit the thumb. And you should know here we're generally going to be referencing the ownership percentages from ESPN Fantasy Football Leagues. They are the most popular platform, so it's tough to know everyone's individual league. We're going to do our best. So just assume when we're talking about ownership, we're talking about ESPN. And in general, unless otherwise noted, we'd be talking about pretty standard 12-team PPR leagues.
Well, the bye weeks have officially started here, and you will be without your Falcons, Bears, Packers, and the Steelers players in week 5. Let's start off with the cream of the crop here, the quarterback position. Mills, it feels like we got a couple of major injury issues here, right?
Yeah, and of course they're about as clear as mud. So as we are, recording this on Monday night, it's not necessarily so easy to decipher. But right now, Lamar Jackson has a hamstring issue. Kind of tough games here at home versus Houston and the Rams before a bye in Week 7. So it's not impossible that Jackson winds up missing time. If you own him, I guess you could pick up Cooper Rush, but Cooper Rush is really best suited for two quarterback and super flex leagues. If you own Jackson, there are probably better options than Cooper Rush out there, but Cooper Rush is apparently possibly going to be a thing, as is Marcus Mariota, maybe for one more week. Jaden Daniels missed his second straight game here. Mariota continues to offer serviceable fantasy performances, even if he isn't everything you would desire in a real life NFL quarterback. So if you own Jaden Daniels, you don't have another option, probably good to handcuff him to Mariota in a two quarterback superflex league. You should absolutely do so. And then Brock Purdy aggravated his toe injury. Not sure if he will miss week 5 or not. McCorkle Jones is dealing with an injury of his own. But once again, in your two quarterback and superflex leagues, if you own Brock Purdy, probably a good idea to go ahead, tuck Mac Jones on your bench. In terms of priority ads for week 5 at quarterback, up top is definitely Matthew Stafford. We recommended him last week, came through with almost 25 points against the Colts. One of the best upcoming schedules for any fantasy quarterback versus San Francisco, at Baltimore, at Jacksonville. Sounds crazy, Jamie G, but at Baltimore is one of the best matchups you can get as a fantasy quarterback right now. And then again, we mentioned Cooper Rush in two quarterback superflex leagues, literally owned in 0% of ESPN leagues. So he is basically out there everywhere. In terms of speculative ads, guys you can tuck on your bench but might not necessarily produce right away. You have Michael Penix Jr., the Atlanta Falcons quarterback, owned in about 20% of leagues on a buy in week 5. So if you're using the FAB system here, one quarterback league, you're talking about a minimum bid, $1, $2, something like that. Throw him on the back of your bench if you're going with quarterback by committee, playing the matchup, something of that nature. Same kind of thing for Jackson Dart. Again, he would be a high priority in a two quarterback super flex, but he's only owned in about 21% of leagues. So if the Giants rookie is out there in a one quarterback league, you're playing the upside, you're playing the long term game here. Just maybe throw a buck or two of FAB, tuck him on your bench. But he did lose Malik Nabers for the season. So despite whatever he can add with his legs, that is not optimal. And if you're looking for streamers this week, right up top, you have CJ Stroud. We're going to fudge it a little bit. He is owned in 54% of leagues, but still basically out there in about half of them. at Baltimore. The matchup doesn't sound great, but that defense could be missing somewhere between 4 and 7 starters. Some of the Houston offensive players are starting to pick up the pace a bit, most notably Woody Marks, who we'll get to in a minute. I know the offensive line is still a problem for the Texans, but there's a lot to like here. And then you have Sam Darnold at home versus the Bucks, only owned in 9% of leagues. Solid matchup. He's been right in that 15 fantasy point range for the last 3 weeks. Does have some upside beyond that, but for the most part, he seems to have been avoiding the bad Sam Darnold we're worried about most of the time. Jamie G, let me ask you, if you had to pick a streamer this week, would you rather start CJ Stroud at Baltimore or Sam Darnold versus Tampa Bay?
Mills, this is a crazy one because it feels like if there's ever going to be a CJ Stroud breakout game, it's got to be against this Baltimore defense, right? All the injuries, all the issues they're having, it's got to be, right? That said, Sam Darnold seems like just as good of an opportunity here, and you kind of know what to expect out of him. It's kind of like floor ceiling. I guess I'm probably going to go floor and go Darnold, but I won't fault you at all if you want to go ceiling and go Stroud.
Yeah, the idea was these are kind of a coin flip. Honestly, without knowing whether or not Jackson is going to play, I don't know if I'm fully prepared to make the call. I would probably slightly lean Stroud, but that's because I have probably an inordinate amount of confidence in some of the Houston Texans rookies that I've been waiting to take off on the offensive side of the ball. So we'll see if it happened because I think it started to last week.
Well, at running back, it wasn't necessarily surprising to see Ashton Genty have his big breakout game. But Mills, did I have a couple too many pints over at the 19th hole in Dublin, or did Kenneth gain very well indeed?
Oh, Kenneth Gain very well. He might even be related to Felicity Shagwell because that was both unexpected and awesome. But the Steelers are on a bye in week 5. Probably gives enough time for Jalen Warren to come back. So he's not quite making it to the top of the list here. I do have one big injury to note. Bucky Irving, as we are recording this on Monday night, the Tampa Bay running back is getting an MRI. We do not know the results. He finished out the game, so we don't have any reason to think he will miss in week 5. But whenever a guy's getting an MRI, you want to take notice of it. So Rashad White's only owned in 48% of leagues. Sean Tucker's only owned in 1% of leagues. Both of those guys should be near the top of your list if Bucky Irving was to miss time. JBG, if Bucky Irving was to miss time, would you rather go with Rashad White, knowing that he's probably going to get the passing game work and the couple of first cracks at the end zone, or with Sean Tucker, who's proven to be a very, very good athlete, maybe more talented, but might be kind of pigeonholed to that, just carrying the ball on first and second down role?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go Rashad White just because we kind of seen him. Remember for a while there, they were just using Rashad White in like the passing down, and it was working until they realized, oh, Bucky's really good at that too. But I know they know that they can do that with Rashad White, and so I think I'm going Rashad White.
I think that's fair, and I'm about as much of a Sean Tucker truther as there is out there. As far as priority ads, teased it a minute ago, Woody Marks, the Houston Texans rookie, only owned in 33% of ESPN leagues. That offensive line is a little rough, but he has the opportunity to seize control of that job. Yes, they will use Nick Chubb a little bit, but Marks is definitely going to be the guy in the passing game, which is really where the bread is buttered in PPR leagues. Chubb could steal a couple of goal line carries, but if you have a Woody Marks out there on your wire and you need help at running back, I'm definitely willing to probably go up to about 50% of my fab, maybe even 2/3 of my fab. Yes, Mixon could return at some point, but I'm not really expecting it. And then a little bit lower level, probably more like 5 to 10% of my fab. Tajay Spears, the Tennessee Titans running back, should be returning fairly soon, being designated to return from IR, only owned in 28% of leagues. Tony Pollard has been fine. He's very serviceable. I just expect at a certain point the Titans are going to want to see what they have in Tajay Spears. As far as some more speculative ads, guys you could just pick up. Bayshaw Tootin, the rookie running back for the Jacksonville Jaguars, owned in 48% of leagues behind ETN, but I love his upside long term. Brian Robinson Jr., the San Francisco 49ers running back, only owned in 42% of league. Again, an elite handcuff, in this case, to Christian McCaffrey, as is Tyler Algier, the Falcons running back, owned in 36% of leagues. He occasionally finds the end zone, so in a pinch, you can maybe throw him in there as a flex on a bye week or something, but still one of the best handcuffs you can own. And then we do have the Kenneth Gainwell, now up to 36% ownership in ESPN leagues. With the bye, not expecting Warren to miss more time, but Gainwell has shown enough now that he can at least be that running back three, that second flex for you, even if Warren is healthy, clearly ahead of Caleb Johnson. And then if you're digging a little bit deeper, Chris Rodriguez, the Commanders running back, only owned in 5% of leagues, has had an increased role since the loss of Austin Eckler. Brashard Smith, the Kansas City Chiefs rookie running back, continues to get a little bit more involved each week, available in 99% of ESPN leagues, as is Emmanuel Wilson, who is now the handcuff to Josh Jacobs. Had a couple of nice plays on Sunday Night Football. Unless they bring Marshawn Lloyd off of IR, he is the man behind Jacobs. We know Jacobs has a little bit of an injury history, so not a bad one to speculate on. And if you are in a deeper league, you're just looking for a little bit of production, especially in PPR, you could look to maybe Xavier Scott of the Minnesota Vikings. He is right now playing most of the passing downs behind Jordan Mason. Had a very nice week last week because he caught a touchdown. He is a former wide receiver, a lot of skill in the passing game. So again, very, very speculative, but could want to pay enough for you in a deeper league, as could Amari DiMercardo. We've seen him spike before at the end of seasons, only owned in 3% of leagues. Down there in Arizona, he is now kind of the third down back with Trey Benson there with the loss of James Conner for the season. So again, in a deeper PPR league, don't mind either of those guys.
Yeah, and there's no way to sugarcoat it here, Mills. Losing Malik Nabers absolutely sucks. Terrible break for him, the Giants, the NFL, your fantasy team, literally everybody involved. But this is the NFL. And unfortunately, crap like this happens every single season. Other than recommending the use of a time machine to pick up Quentin Johnson before week one, Mills, how can we try to rebuild our wide receiver depth here if we lost Neighbors?
There's usually not that much of a silver lining, but I will say if you're playing in these ESPN leagues, there are a few players that are still owned in under 80% of leagues that blow my mind at wide receiver. You have Jordan Addison just returning from suspension. The Vikings wide receiver only owned in 79% of ESPN leagues. We have Jamie G's guy, Khalil Shakir, only owned in 74% of leagues. And then Stephon Diggs quietly making a nice return from his torn ACL. Looks to be the lead target for Drake May, only owned in 77% of leagues. So if any of those three are out there on your wire, do it. Do it now. You know, you can blow up to 50% of your fab on them. They could go a long way to helping you this season. In terms of priority ads, we have a trio here, the Dangerous Three, including two Giants. Wan'Dale Robinson is owned in 54% of leagues, but we're going to fudge it a little bit here because he is more or less the obvious pickup with the Giants losing Neighbors. I'm not going to go over the top for Robinson. I would say, yeah, half your fab is fine, 50%, but I'm not going to go above that. You also have Darius Slayton, only owned in 4% of leagues. I'm inclined to go more in that 10 to 15% of your waiver value for Slayton, but he will definitely be the deep threat, probably more of a boom or bust prospect, but I do like him a lot. And then I will continue to beat the drum for Elick Ayomanor, the Titans wide receiver. He is shaping up to be the number one target in that passing game, somehow only owned in 31% of ESPN leagues. So if he's still out there, go ahead, blow 15-20% of your fab, make that happen. And if you're speculating at wide receiver, obviously Romeo Dubs, owned in 37% of ESPN leagues, had a monster with three touchdowns against the Cowboys on Sunday Night Football in Week 4. That is all well and good, but they're on a bye in Week 5. The Packers do have Cincinnati at home in Week 6, so there is some value to Dubs, but don't get out over your skis here. You know, again, probably 10 to 15% of my fab as far as I would go. I'm continuing to add Torrey Horton, only owned in 7% of ESPN leagues. Shouldn't cost you more than a buck or two. Stay on that train. And I'm even speculating on Luke McCaffrey, only owned in 1% of leagues. Bear in mind, Terry McLaurin could return next week, which could render McCaffrey a little bit irrelevant, especially in more shallow formats. But I like the talent. The former third round pick last year has been stepping up with touchdowns 2 weeks in a row. Isaiah Bond also stepping up for the Cleveland Browns. The rookie wide receiver looks to fill the void left by Cedric Tillman, who will miss the next couple of games out there in 99% of ESPN leagues. I would gladly throw 5 to 10% of my fab on him. And then finally, if you're in a deeper league, I know we had the huge fumble, Jamie G. You can't fumble the ball out of the end zone when you're running in there. But the fact that Adonai Mitchell had those big plays to begin with is something to like, especially if Alec Pierce continues to miss time. Another dude who's out there in 99% of ESPN leagues. So probably not someone you're going to in your standard 12-team league, but if you're digging a little bit deeper, we'd like Mitchell as a talent last year as a rookie. He was a second-round pick. Still a lot of upside there. So if you got a little patience in a deeper league, maybe you can make it happen for you.
Yeah, well, the tight end position continues to be the black hole. And sorry, Raiders fans, not talking about your stadium. It's literally the black hole for most fantasy football teams. Very hard to fill. Mills, let's try to help the people out here, even if finding a consistent tight end is basically mission impossible.
Yeah, it's basically like trying to drink a blue hole by yourself.
And for our first timers, I like to recommend our blended signature cocktail, the Blue Hole, served with 3 straws and a fish bowl. It's pretty darn good. Some people say it's better than an orgasm.
Not that he's ever had one.
Okay, Maxwell.
This is another position where it's a little weird because there are a few players still available in like they're owned in less than 80% of leagues, and I can't believe it. Jamie G, your own Dalton Kincaid still only owned in 77% of ESPN leagues. So if you're in one of the 23%, go ahead, do it now. Same thing with Hunter Henry, owned in 70% of ESPN leagues. He's out there in 30% of leagues. Do something about that. He's going to be a little bit inconsistent, but he is right there, right neck and neck with Stephon Diggs to be the leading target for Drake May. You also have Dallas Goedert of my Philadelphia Eagles. He's played 3 games this season, and in all 3, he's had at least 10 PPR points, only owned in 68% of ESPN leagues. And Kyle Pitts Jr., you would think with all the hype over the years, he'd be higher owned, only owned in 65% of ESPN leagues. So he's out there in 35%. He is shown to be a pretty good threat, maybe the best since his rookie year, with Michael Penix Jr. at the controls. So keep that in mind. In terms of priority ads, you have Darren Waller, the tight end for the Miami Dolphins. Found the end zone twice on Monday Night Football, only owned in 10% of leagues, and it looks like they will be without Tyreek Hill. So I think he is a priority ad at the tight end position, maybe called up to 25% of your fab, maybe 30 in tight end premium. And I would also go out of my way to add Theo Johnson, the New York Giants tight end, is only owned in 2% of leagues, but could definitely see an uptick in targets here with the absence of Malik Nabers. So again, probably go to 5 to 10% of my fab on him. If you're going to speculate at tight end, still like Harold Fannin Jr., the Cleveland Browns rookie, is only owned in 33% of ESPN leagues. Jacksonville Jaguars sophomore tight end Brenton Strange is only owned in 23% of leagues. Chigo Nkoku, been waiting for him to happen. Somebody's got to catch the ball in Tennessee. He's only owned in 21% of leagues. And despite the uncertain injury status of Lamar Jackson, I'm still willing to speculate on Isaiah Likely, only owned in 13% of ESPN leagues. And if you're looking for a streamer at the tight end position in week 5, maybe it's getting Otten here, Jamie G. Cade Otten, only owned in 11% of leagues at this point, is traveling to Seattle. The Seahawks have struggled at home. They've struggled against the tight end. No Mike Evans. Otten had a couple of chances against the Eagles. Maybe he can get it done this week. Otherwise, for the Chargers, if Will Dissly remains out, I would go back to the well with Rondé Getz in the second. They are at home versus the Commanders, only owned in 2% of leagues, out there almost everywhere. And finally, if you want to dig really deep at tight end, the Carolina Panthers starting tight end, Tommy Tremble, fantastic name, owned in 0% of leagues, is out there against Miami in week 5.
Offense rules everything around us when it comes to fantasy football, but we do feel that the defense and special team units deserve a place at the table. Mills, what is that reference from? And who are the top defensive special team streaming options for week 5?
Oh, Jamie G, a smile comes to my face every time I get to reference the program. Unfortunately, I don't know if it's streaming that many places, but yes, check out the program, the early 1990s football movie. Very, very much a good time. And as far as defensive special teams streaming options in week 5, we have 2 at the very, very top here. First, we have the Indianapolis Colts. They are home against the Las Vegas Raiders. They are owned in 40% of ESPN leagues. And then we have the Arizona Cardinals, also at home, in this case against the Tennessee Titans. They are owned in 24% of leagues. Jamie G, let me put it to you. Gun to your special agent Johnson. Would you rather roll the Colts DST against the Raiders or the Cardinals DST against the Titans?
Oh man, that's tough. I think I'm probably going to go with the Colts here. I know that it's probably not the better matchup, but I like the Colts defense a little bit more than I like Arizona's.
But they're pretty close, right? So you probably
They are
spend
pretty
again,
close.
like I don't usually go overboard with the fab unless it's a unit you think you can start for multiple weeks. So I think both of these teams are probably in the 5% range, but I would pretty much be happy with either as my streaming defense this week, right?
Yeah, I think they're both probably the right answer.
Right. There's no, yeah. In this case, yeah, the right answer, there is no wrong answer either way. Heads we win, tails you lose. We'll take it.
Yes, we will. And we'll take you riding with us each and every week throughout the season here. Thanks for checking out another episode of Seize the Gap Fantasy Football. We want to be here for all your fantasy needs all throughout the season. So if you haven't done so yet, go ahead and like and subscribe so this shows up in your feed. And you can follow us all season long as we work through this crazy thing called the NFL League. We love it, but it's wild and we need all the help we can get. Mills will let you know you can find all of our stuff. Go ahead, drop a comment below, get at us on social media, and we'll see you next time.
It's a crazy, mixed up world. It's an NFL world. It might even be a Josh Allen world. This has been a Seize the Gap Fantasy Football episode. Thank you very much for checking out our show. You can find our content wherever you get your pods and on YouTube. Find us on social media at Seize the Gap FF and on the web at seizethegapff.com. Try to keep it nice and easy to remember, just like the flaps, FLAPS. Follow, like, and please subscribe if you had fun. Remember to touch the thumb. I'm Magnum Mills. He's Jamie G. Thanks again for checking out the show. And please remember to seize the gap and stop being so inefficient.
And we don't care if you're old. You need to seize the gap.
It's a crazy, mixed up world. It's a dog